Welcome back to Jeff and Fiona's story about the Amazon. I'm actually talking here to Irene, but she was not with me at the time that I went down the Amazon, spending about 1.5 years backpacking through Central and South America with my then partner Fiona. I don't know how she put up with me for 28 years, but she did, and she followed me, and it was a wonderfully adventurous person, I've got to admit. She's a wonderful person. We're still very good friends.
How about me?
Yes, well, maybe we'll get there sooner or later. We're going to continue with our story. At the moment, we are in the Amazon jungle in Ecuador. We have camped for the first night and spent the first day wandering through the jungle, learning about all the trees and the medicines and everything else like that. So if you enjoy what you're hearing, please press subscribe, press like, leave a comment about whatever you do. Maybe you've been through there yourself, and ring the little bell on your computer there or your phone, so you receive more posts from us in the future. So we spent the second night in the Amazon jungle. The third day we're there doing similar things, just trekking through the jungle and learning all about how to live in that type of environment.
How long did you do that?
5 days. The trip was 5 days. Well, 6 days, 5 nights.
No shower? Nothing.
Well, not in the jungle, no. none of the fineries of life.
But they have a river.
They have a river, yes, if you want to swim with the Paranha and the white dolphins, and they have white dolphins swimming up the Rio Napa and the Amazon River, not up the little estuaries where we were.
The river is dangerous too.
Oh yes, very dangerous. Lots of anacondas, crocodiles, and I'm told actually the crocodile's favourite food is actually a bronze-skinned Filipino woman.
I don't think so. We are already a crocodile.
This is why they're all so hungry over there, because not so many Filipinos get there, you see. So, the last day, we're trekking through the jungle, and we're actually heading out towards the dugout canoes to row back to the village again. And we're wandering around in circles, and I said to the guide, I think we've been past this spot before. And he looked at me and he said, yes, I'm lost. We're in the middle of not the middle of it, but we're in the Amazon jungle, in the middle of the jungle, in his tribal land, which was granted by the government, which he said nobody had been into for 5 years, right? And he's lost, right? But he said, don't worry, I'll find my way. So I guess that they know by where the sun is and etc., which direction to go. And then they know that sooner or later they're going to come across a river, and then they'll recognize where they are. But as he said, if no one had been in there for 5 years to his knowledge, then that obviously meant him. So he was a little bit unfamiliar with it. Then we came across one spot where somebody had felled an enormous great tree. It had been chainsawed down, right? And his demeanour, the guy's demeanour changed dramatically, you know. One minute he was angry, and next minute he was sad, and because this was supposed to be their tribal government protected land, but somebody had obviously been in there and logged this, it was a massive big tree. Well, judging by the stump. And he was very, very sad, never spoke for quite some time. It was almost like somebody had cut the legs off his daughter or something like that.
You said a while ago that nobody go there for
5 years. Well, to his knowledge, nobody had been there.
Okay.
But I mean, loggers don't advertise that they're going in there. They come in the back way, they take it out, they drag it out, float it down the river, and you know.
But it's dangerous. They have a lot of tiger.
Well, there's a lot of animals. There's a lot of animals there. Sloths, which are not really dangerous, even though they have these great big foot. What's a sloth?
Sloth. Sorry.
No, not a slut, a sloth. A sloth is like an elongated koala bear. They're very, very slow moving. Very slow moving. So
they climb the tree also.
They live in the tree. They live in a tree for about a week, and they only come down once a week just to do their poos and their things, and then they climb back up the tree again.
But very slowly.
Very, like literally.
Yeah, like that.
And they've got these long, long claws.
But it's not dangerous.
Well, not dangerous at all, because we actually found a sloth. It was climbing up the tree, and when we came close to it, was holding onto the tree here, and it lifted this arm out like this, like almost in welcome. So we went up there and tickled it on the tummy, and you could almost see it laughing. I mean, I don't know whether it was or not, but it certainly didn't object to us being there.
Yeah.
But because they are very, very slow moving, of course, they're easy prey for any of the animals. So they've got lots of anteaters and armadillos and all sorts of things like that in there. But you don't really see them very often, from what he tells me. The birds are the things that you see a lot of. But then, even then, they're way up in the canopies because it's very high. Even though it's secondary forest, it's not primary forest. The birds are still very high above you. And the toucans and birds like that, with the ones with the big beaks, and the ones with they have the great big beak that comes out, and they talk a lot. Like Filipinos. Like Filipinos, they talk a lot. You what?
Like parrot.
A little bit like a parrot with a big nose. Like a white boy, a big nose. So he was very, very sad about this tree being cut down. Then we're walking out, trying to find our way out from when he'd been lost, and he sees a wild boar. So he gets out his gun, and he shoots this wild boar through the trees.
Why?
Well, they have to grow or catch everything that they eat in the village. This actually wasn't the last night, it was the night before the last night.
It's a big one?
Yeah, it's about the size of a 3 or 4 year old pig. So big, but not really big, and not really small. It was about the size of a 3 or 4 year old pig. And then he cut it all up. Sliced it all up, cut off the limbs, and he gutted it all and everything. And of course, then if we're going to take it back to his village for people to eat, it's got to be carried out. You see, so we all just slung a hind quarter over our backs or whatever we had, and started carrying it out. He cooked some of it up for dinner that night.
Yummy.
It was tough. It was tough. It's.
What does the taste look like? The taste.
It's very, very gamey. Very gamey. Gamey, it means it's like a very rich taste. It was almost like pheasant, but you probably never had pheasant.
Pig, pork?
No, it must.
Pig, pork. It's like pig or cow or.
No, it's different than that.
Mutton.
I guess a little bit like mutton. Really tough mutton.
Very old.
Mutton is very, very old lamb.
Yeah.
So a little bit like mutton. And so we carry this out, blood dripping all over us, which of course creates another problem in my mind anyway, because if you've got blood dripping over you, these animals in the jungle, surely that's what they sense. They know that there's blood out there, and so I'm walking out there with this blood dripping everywhere, and when I'm thinking, these animals must know we're here now. I mean, they know we're here because we're making lots of noise and everything, but they know we're here just from the smell, and so, but we were quite safe. Eventually, we got back to the dugout canoes and loaded them in the canoes, rowed back to the village, which was another big thing. There was a small river bank there where he lived. We just plopped in the Austrian boys and Fiona and I just fully clothed, plopped in this river. It was the first wash we'd had for 4 days.
That river is not dangerous.
Well, it was very shallow. There was just sort of pools, and it was pools that had been caught there. Because even though it's very cold at night time and very cold under the canopy, when you're walking through carrying a backpack, carrying a hind quarter of a pig, you're sweating a lot anyway, and we were totally exhausted. So we get back to the village, and he took the pig around to all the different families and shared them out through all the different families. And we were in the kitchen that night cooking up, and I was cooking some rice and bits of meat and things like that. And there was a tigre there. Some time ago, they had found this baby tigre that had been, its mother had been killed for some reason, and they found it when it was only about a month old. When we got there, it was about 3 months old. And so I'm cooking away in the kitchen there, and this tigre leaps up onto the table, starts walking across the table down towards the food. Now, it was about the size of a very large cat, had sort of grey, hairy fur around it, and sort of a black, not stripes exactly, but serrated sort of stripes around its body. And it was getting too close to what I was doing, so I just sort of went to shoo it away, shoo, go away, and it just opened its mouth and snarled at me, And when it snarled, I thought, I am very glad we never met your mama in the jungle. Because you just knew that this thing, even at 3 months old, if it wanted to tear you apart, it would rip you to shreds, And so what a grown one would do. Oh, well, they were keeping it in the village until it got old enough to take back and release into the wild.
But it's not dangerous.
Well, not at that age, apparently not. Or at least, I suppose they know how to handle them better.
Okay.
But they were keeping it around the village and feeding it until it got big enough to release back into the wild. It wasn't chained up or tied up or anything like that.
Just walking around?
Just walking around.
Oh my God.
So I guess when it felt it was old enough, it probably just would have wandered off by itself anyway. But by golly, when this thing snarled at you, you just knew. I'm glad we never found what we went looking for. So we spent the night there again. Had a wonderful time with all the villagers. They did some dancing for us, and Fiona and I used to dance, so we did some dancing for them, and just couldn't communicate very well because the villagers didn't speak any English at all, or they didn't even speak much Spanish. It was only the guide that spoke the Spanish, so he was doing all the interpreting. And everything, all through the whole trip, was done in broken Spanish because our Spanish was sufficient but not good. Sufficient to get the gist of, as I used to say to people, if you talk to me like a child, I can understand you. If you try to get use correct grammar and everything like that, then I get a little bit lost. Our Spanish improved a bit later on, but at this stage we were, well, I suppose we were about 6 or 7 months into our trip, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So the next day, there's the longboats running up and down the Rio Napo, right? And he waved one of the longboats into us, and they picked us up and they ran us back to the general store. They ran us back to a meeting place where we could catch a truck back to the general store. Right? So we had to sit there and wait for some truck to come past.
Why did you choose to go there?
Why did we choose to go into the jungle?
Oh. And in that kind of jungle, especially that kind of jungle.
Purely adventure.
But they have a lot of jungle that you can go.
they have a lot of jungles. They have jungles here in the Philippines. They have jungles I've been to in Africa. They have jungles in Central America. They have jungles in India, which we've been through. But the Amazon is different. The Amazon has this connotation of this mass. I mean, it is the biggest wildland in the world, the Amazon jungle, and it is, to a large extent, well, maybe not these days because of the amount of logging and mining that goes on. It's largely not known, you know. And this was 25 years ago, 28 years ago, something like that, remember?
Maybe this year they changed a lot.
Yeah, there's all the logging and everything like that. Oh, one of the other things we did too in the village before we went back there was we went searching for anaconda. Oh, and I forgot about the shaman ceremony.
You're searching anaconda, you're already anaconda.
You've been picky. Yeah, we went. He took us looking for anaconda, and we ran up a number of estuaries there. And he said, "There's normally an anaconda hanging in this tree, and there's normally one in this tree, but we couldn't find one. Unfortunately, we didn't find the big anaconda." He said, "They're probably in the water doing what they're doing."
Anaconda is dangerous.
Oh yeah, very dangerous. You know, if they get hold of you, you're not going to get away.
But
They wrap themselves around you.
but they're not poisonous.
They're not poisonous, but they wrap themselves around you and squeeze the life out of you.
Why?
You know, like Filipinos do too. They wrap themselves around, squeeze the life out of you.
Why the villages choose to live in that?
Well, that's their traditional land. It's a traditional way of life. That's the way that they.
So they never been to the a small city.
I guess maybe some of them have, but generally speaking, no. It's like many people in the Philippines and the provinces. Many people who live way into the provinces have never been to the cities. You know?
But the way of living, like they plants or they.
No, mostly they just live off the jungle. We never actually saw any fields where they had planted crops. We never actually saw anything like that.
It means they are catching.
They will fish out of the river and meat from the jungle. Primarily, that's what they eat. But then we went to the shaman. I forgot about the shaman. We went to the shaman ceremony in the evening, before we went back the next day. Went to the shaman ceremony, and he lights the fire underneath us and sits us in a chair, and he gets these fronds of leaves and things like that, and he's beating us across the back. We had to take our shirt off. He's beating us across the back, waving the smoke over us, and gave us a drink to drink. And before all this, he asked us, what is your problem that you'd like us to deal with? You see? Well, it was really amusing to me because one of the Austrian boys said, "I've got a red nose. Can you fix my red nose?" And I thought I didn't realise we were here with Santa Claus, you know. But the other thing that occurred to me that in the West, if having a red nose is your major problem in life,
Why?
you really don't have many problems in life. You know, if having a red nose is the biggest problem you have, then you don't have too many problems. You know? And unfortunately, we never got to try the ayahuasca or anything like that, which was their potent shaman drink. He gave us this drink, but it wasn't ayahuasca. Didn't induce hallucinations or anything like that. Unfortunately, that came later on in a different trip I'll tell you about. So the next day, the longboat dropped us at this place. We waited for a truck to come past. So we're sitting in the back of this truck to take us back to the general store to where we can get a bus back to the hospedaje in Cuenca. And we're sitting on all these sacks. All these sacks are thrown in the back of the truck. And Fiona's sitting there. Next minute, her sack starts moving. Right? Oh, what's that? And she gets up and she's feeling it. And it's moving all over the place. She said, "What am I sitting on?" And it was a sack full of turtles.
I thought snake.
It was a sack full of turtles. No, not snakes, fortunately.
Where they catch a turtle?
Well, they catch the turtles in the river, and they don't kill them, of course. They keep them alive because you can't, in that heat, you can't keep them. So they keep them alive, they take them to the city and they sell them in the market to get some money to buy their vegetables and crops and things like that. So so that was a little bit hilarious. We got the bus and wound up back at Cuenca, and it was a tremendous trip. Just something that the vast majority of people in the world would never ever experience. Just one of those things to tell your grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and pass down in time. And to show them that, decrepit old grandpa isn't the silly old fart that they think he is. Wonderful time, wonderful trip.
I want to experience.
You want to experience going into the jungle?
In a different way, like not staying there for a night.
No, you want to stay in the resorts. You're a resort girl, eh?
No, I'm not what I mean. But what I mean was like I want to experience trekking in the forest, in the jungle. I mean, but not certain time that you sleep there.
Well, another time I'll tell you about trekking into the tribal lands in Sri Lanka and sleeping on the top of a big rock where the elephants and the leopards used to come. But that's another time. At the moment, we'd better finish now. I think we've just about run out of time. Please, if you enjoyed the story, subscribe, press like, make a comment, and ring the little bell. Little bell, ding, 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 ding. We'll let you know of any future posts that we make. See you next time. Thank you for watching.